And
so that did start the recording automatically there.
Oh, yeah.
And then for Facebook, you click on more. That button isn't there on the meetings.
Okay.
Just go live on Facebook.
Do you have to set it up so it links to your Facebook account?
It'll ask
you to log in.
Okay.
But I'm already logged in. So it goes to my account and it's going to look for any that I have admin privileges on. So it'll always post to your timeline, but then I can also share to a group that I'm an admin.
Ah, okay.
So then we've got these ones in here already.
Gotcha.
So it won't go on Shawn's page. It'll just go on
one person.
Yep.
Okay.
And then once you hit live,
then we're live.
We'll go live. Yep. And then I'll just double check it.
I've got it right here.
Yep. There we are.
There we go.
Perfect. All right. All right. Hello, everybody.
Hi, guys.
Hello.
And then afterwards, we can rename it commonly asked questions too.
All right. Let's do it.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. We have got Dr. Mark Gordon, Elite Pro 9, and Shawn Coe, Elite Pro 9, and I am Michelle Poe, and it is, what is it, March
25th.
Oh yeah, auto ship day, March 25th. And we are just so excited. We were talking the other day about how can we help everybody even more to build their business, to answer questions that come up. And we were thinking, let's record a video that talks about the most commonly asked questions that, you know, Shawn gets, especially on the business side, and Mark gets on the product side, because both of them are definitely very, very well versed in those specific areas, and each of them get probably the majority of questions are based on product for you and probably business for you.
Yep.
And so we thought, let's put together a group of questions that could help everybody so that you could hear it over and over and over again to help you guys answer those questions that will come up. So we're just so excited that you guys are here. We're excited to get these questions out to you and hope that it'll be of value to you and help you grow and help bless a lot more people. So thank you, Dr. Mark and Shawn, for taking the time to help bless everybody. And if you guys have any questions that come up that they're not addressing, put them in the comments below and we'll try to address them after they're done going through their questions.
All right.
Cool.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so let's get started here on the product side, Mark. We get asked the question a lot after we've presented the information. People do their due diligence. They want to know why there aren't more human studies on the products.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a really good question. And if you look at nutraceutical products in general, the companies don't do a lot of human clinical trials. And the reason is they're expensive, number one. Number two, pharmaceutical companies need to do human clinical trials to get their drugs FDA approved. And nutritional supplements aren't looking for FDA approval, so therefore they don't need to spend the money to do those. Now, for validation, it would be nice to have human clinical studies, but there's problems with that. Because nutritional supplements aren't allowed to be able to make statements that they cure, treat, prevent, or mitigate any disease, it really behooves them to not do human clinical studies, because if they do, they put themselves in a difficult situation with the FDA, whereby if we did a study and showed that Proteanum, for example, helped improve a particular disease, then the FDA could step in and say, well, you guys are a drug and therefore you have to go through FDA approval as a drug. You can't market this through the marketing channel that you're using anymore. So that really ties the hands of the nutritional supplement companies with regard to doing studies on diseases and specifically studies on humans. So it makes it difficult for us because as a company, we can do human studies, but we have to do them on normal subjects. And when you're doing a study on normal individuals, it's harder to show an effect than if you're doing studies on sick people. If somebody's sick, it's much easier to get them to feel better, but if somebody's already well, it's harder to show an improvement in things. But I'm very proud of the fact that we have the human studies that we do, especially the first one that shows a 40% reduction in oxidative stress within 30 days. in everybody who takes Protandim. And that is probably the biggest thing that we have. Now, let me comment on one of the other studies. I've gotten asked a lot about the runner study. Why didn't it show any improvement in reduction in oxidative stress? And actually it did, if you read the study very closely. If you take a group of runners, for example, they fall into that very healthy group and they probably have low levels of oxidative stress to begin with. But if you look at the subgroup analysis in that study, those individuals over the age of 35 actually did show an improvement. So even though you had very healthy 35-plus-year-old people, we were able to show an improvement in things in that group. It's just that the younger group were so healthy and had such low levels of oxidative stress to begin with. That's why it didn't really show any benefit.
Love it. I love it.
So Shawn, let me ask you a question that I get asked all the time, and that is this one of those pyramid schemes? So how do you answer that?
Pyramid scheme. Well, here's the funny thing about, when people are asking that question, typically they don't even understand what that truly means or what a pyramid scheme would represent. So the definition of a pyramid scheme is really the transfer of money from person to person without a true product or service being offered. So, with LifeVantage, let's take a look specifically at our company. Is there a product or service that's exchanged? And there absolutely is. I think that our company in the network marketing arena is very, very different than the typical one because our customer base is so high of a percentage of our total amount of people that are consuming the products. We're around 80 to 90% in most of our groups that I'm familiar with as far as a customer to distributor ratio. So yes, there is money being exchanged just like there is in any typical commerce activity, but there is a valuable product or a product of value being offered in there. So there's absolutely no way that the government's going to come in and look at it and say, this is a Ponzi scheme or a pyramid scheme. It is a network marketing company, but as far as it being illegal or anything that doesn't offer value, that would be absolutely false.
Well, how about those people though that say, well, those pyramid schemes, they really don't work.
Yeah.
And I've seen so many people get involved with these and they just lose money. How do you address those folks?
Yeah, I think, when you look at any type of business, there's going to be people that have success and there's going to be other people that come in and they don't. What I would look for in a business that I'm going into is if I don't have experience in that field, first of all, is there a proven system that I can plug into to get up to speed and get over that learning curve? The awesome part about this business model is there's not only that proven system that we have in place, but it's really set up on the compensation side to incent people to help other people be successful. Their success is directly derived from helping as many other people be successful as possible. So that's very, very different than most business models. As far as, is there money to be made? We have the income disclosure sheet. You can see from the ranks in the company of Pro 1 to Pro 10, what the average distributor at each one of those ranks is making. Now, some people, they don't make full-time money. They don't make supplemental money. They make part-time money. People that treat this business like a hobby get paid like it's a hobby. They don't get paid. But the reality is if you expose the information in the format and the ways that we teach people and you use third-party validation, you use your team as a resource, you will find other like-minded people that want to consume the products, and eventually you find some people that want to share it with other people as well. So it does work. It isn't an overnight business. I don't know what business is an overnight business. How long did it take you to become a cardiologist?
Oh boy, I think I won the award at the 20th reunion from our high school of spending the most time in school. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, so it's a long time.
So did you build your business in LifeVantage having no network marketing experience faster than it took you to become a cardiologist?
Yes, and interestingly, within about 15 months in LifeVantage, I was making more than I did in the first 15 months after I finished all my medical training. Wow. I was a doctor.
That's crazy. And so we've literally seen thousands upon thousands of people, tens of thousands of people get paid doing this. But everybody isn't making generational changing money. It takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of energy, a lot of persistence, a lot of personal growth. But what doesn't? Anything that's worthwhile in life, it takes time, it takes energy, it takes sacrifice to get where you want to get. But use that income disclosure sheet when people are asking about the type of money that people get paid, because there's I call it 4 different levels of payment. There's the part-time, there's the supplemental, there's the full-time money, and then there truly is life-changing money, generational money involved in it.
I call it walk away from your day job money.
That's right. Absolutely. I love it. I love it. I know on the product side, we get asked quite a bit. And I think, again, this comes down to education on informing people of what's reality and what's just in their head, things to say is why doesn't NRF2 or any of our other products have FDA approval?
Well, that's a good question too. And it's something that even physicians bring up when they hear about Protandim. They say, well, it's not FDA approved, so therefore I can't recommend it. But actually, no nutritional supplements are FDA approved. If you walk into a pharmacy and you ask the pharmacist, show me your section of FDA approved supplements, there aren't any. The FDA has specific rules and regulations that they follow, and their primary purpose is to approve and monitor drugs. Now, in the approval process, they have to go through safety trials and so forth with drugs to make sure that they're not going to cause undue harm. And even with that, we hear about drugs that do get approved that end up getting pulled off the market because they cause harm anyway. So really, what is the purpose of the FDA? Some people would ask. But with regard to nutritional supplements, the FDA does not approve nutritional supplements. They monitor and they regulate them. And if a company is making disease claims, they will come down hard on the company. And that's why it's important that we as a company police ourselves and temper that temptation that we have to tell all of these testimonials that we've all heard. And we've heard some amazing ones, but we just are not allowed to do that because of the FDA rules. And the FDA's role in supplements is this. They don't approve them. Supplements get out there. Supplements are generally considered nutritional products, foods. Okay, they're considered more of a food than a drug. And as such, the FDA will monitor and regulate and make sure that they're not making claims. But also, if there are problems that arise with a particular supplement, the FDA will then go investigate. And if there is indeed a problem, they will have it pulled off the market. And we've seen that before. For example, with products that had L-tryptophan in, for example, to help sleep. There was some tainted product that came over from, I believe it was China or someplace like that. And they ended up pulling that off the market for a number of years until it all got cleaned up, and then they were able to remarket it and so forth. So we have to remember that the FDA has a role in supplements, but they don't approve them. So if a person asks you, well, is this FDA approved? You can say, no, it's not, but no other supplements are. And if a physician asks you, is it FDA approved? It just shows that that physician lacks the knowledge about what the FDA does and does not do with regard to supplements.
Yeah. And I love the fact that you can actually go to fda.gov. You can search supplements and you can see what their role is in regards to supplements, but it is not the approval or the validation or the stamp on it. It's more on the consumer safety side, that if it is in the marketplace and there is consumer safety concerns, then they would look at it. Is that right?
Correct. And a lot of the rules and regulations that we have to abide by as a nutritional supplement company right now came from something called the DSHEA Act, the Dietary Supplement Health Education Act, that was in the mid-90s. And that's where the phrase came from. Supplements can't make statements that they cure, treat, mitigate, or prevent any disease. And you have to put that disclaimer out there anytime you're talking about supplements and health conditions. And obviously it's better to say the word health conditions rather than diseases when you're talking about things, right?
Yeah.
And so make sure that when you're talking to prospects that you give them that disclaimer that we're not allowed to say that we cure, treat, or prevent anything, and direct the person back to, say, PubMed and say, well, if you have a question about a specific disease, why don't you look up that specific disease and oxidative stress and see if there's a role there, or that disease in nerve 2 and see if there's a role there. So you can't make the claim that that this will treat anything like that. That's from the Deshay Act. The Deshay Act came about as kind of a compromise between nutraceutical companies and pharmaceutical companies. The pharmaceutical companies were trying to put stricter regulations on the nutraceutical companies, and this was kind of the compromise bill. But it's something that we have to live by and abide by, because I don't see it changing anytime soon.
Really, a governmental thing that isn't going to change.
Imagine that.
I love it.
Like taxes.
So I'm hoping that these are helping you guys, and you're starting to understand not only some of the ways to answer these questions, but also some of the why behind our business and what we do and why we say what we say.
Right. Okay, so Shawn, let me ask you something from a business perspective. I get this all the time when I'm talking to prospects, trying to get them to understand why they should consider being a distributor instead of just a customer.
Yeah.
And two of the biggest things that I hear is, I don't have any time and I don't have any money.
Yeah.
So how do you respond to that?
Yeah. In the rejection aspect of our profession, I would say that's probably encompassing 90% is some variation of no time, no money. I would ask more questions. How much time do you think it's going to take? If I could show you a way that we could get you started right away, and it would be very little upfront money, would that be of interest to you? Or, to test to see if they're serious about wanting to do this, but money's an objection, look at one of the packs that they could get involved with and say, hey, if we held a meeting at your house, invited some of your friends and your family, and we could pre-sell some of the product that you're going to get when you get the pack, would that be enough to get you started right away? And those are tests that are going to see how serious they are, or if it's just a polite way of them telling you no. On the time side, you guys, that's the worst objection anybody could offer me, because the most successful people that I see a lot of the time in business have no time, right? But then they find something that is of importance enough for them to reallocate the time that they have to make sure that they can fit it in. I know your life was chaotic when you got started.
Absolutely.
Your life was chaotic in the middle of the journey. Your life is chaotic right now. Ours is no different. When we look at our schedules, people their minds are blown on how we fit so much stuff in. But the reality is we all have 24 hours in a day. And it's decisions that we make all day long. Some people choose to sleep 12, 13 hours with their 24 hours, right? Some people, they'll watch 4 or 5 hours of TV. One of the things when we first started, I had a full-time job. Michelle had a full-time job, 2 little kids, lady living with us from Spain. We had an online business that we worked full-time. We were the definition of no time. But when we saw the importance of these products, we wanted to share it with other people. So, what we were doing was carving out little nooks and crannies in our day when we could use that time to interact with people, or just in the normal course of what we were already doing, how could we get the information in front of people? So, one suggestion, if you say your calendar is completely full, but you want to do this and you're serious about it, what I would look at is going to bed half an hour later and getting up a half an hour earlier. That's going to give you an hour of time that you don't have today, where you can do some of the things throughout your day a little bit earlier to free up some time maybe later at night. When we had first started with this 7 years ago, 2 little kids, most of the work that we did on this was after our kids were in bed. So, we get home from work, maybe 6, have dinner, get the kids showered, get them put to bed, spending a couple hours of family time. And then it was after that, maybe 8, 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, that we might spend a half an hour, or an hour and a half, depending on how the day was, to share this information with people. But that's what we were doing, was just consistent time scheduled on a regular basis. On the no money side and on the no time side, and any objections that you're getting, ask what other questions, or ask more questions to see if those are the only objections. So if somebody says, I don't have time to do this, so okay, I totally get that. I'm super busy myself. I felt the same way. If time wasn't a problem and we could find time for you to do this, is there anything else that would prevent you from doing this with us today? And
to try to get to the root of the problem, to see if there's
right.
really something deep or some other objection that they're
Absolutely.
not telling you about.
Yeah. So get them all out on the table and then start addressing them. I don't have any money. Okay. If we could find you the money, if we could find you a way to get involved, would you get involved today? Because then if they start throwing up more barriers to enter, then you know that probably wasn't the true reason for them using that. It was more of an excuse to delay the decision or to softly tell you, I'm not interested. So.
Right. And I think that on the no money thing, one of the other tactics that I use is I tell people, you know, if you're just going to take Protandim, for example, which is $40 a month, that's not that much money. But if you really don't have that, let me show you a way that we can get this product to you for free.
Yes.
And that's obviously to get them to become a distributor. And it doesn't take much to be able to get them to make enough money to pay for their own product.
Yeah. And I think terminology and phrasing of what you're saying is also important, especially when we're talking about money. Because if you talk about the vitality stack, for example, and you're telling somebody it's $150 and they haven't found enough value in the product, and they're thinking $150 is a lot for me to be, you know, spending on these pills or whatever. I think just rephrasing that for a statement like $5 a day, you can completely reshape the way that you treat your health, or, you know, reshaping the healthier body for $5 a day. And when you break it down like that, I think it's a lot less of an objection than when somebody's thinking about, you know, I've got all these bills, I'm barely, you know, on pace to make it to the end of the month anyway. How am I going to get $150? So think about how you're communicating the information as well.
And then if you can compare it to them, well, what else are you spending $5 a day on? Like, are you going to Starbucks every day and spending $5 on a coffee that probably costs a nickel?
Yep.
You know,
and it comes down to value, because if they find enough value on it, they'll find a way to pay for it. They absolutely will. I mean, we all walk around with these crazy cell phones in our pockets that aren't cheap.
and I think it's important to make the people understand, or help them to understand, why these products have value, what the importance of taking them on a daily basis is, because most people just like, oh, it's just another $150 I'm going to spend, but they don't understand what the downstream value of taking these products over years and years and years is going to provide for them.
Yep. So don't let time or money really be the true objection. Peel the onion a little bit, get into depth with the person on what truly is their hesitation. And we want busy people.
And I think that part of the problem with the time aspect is that people, when they look at something like this, feel like they're signing up for another job.
Yeah. And
it doesn't have to be that way. It certainly wasn't for me in the beginning, and I know it wasn't for you and Michelle either. And like you said, you just weave it in the nooks and crannies of your life and carry on conversations. And as you do so, you bring this up with people, and that's what grows the business. Some people block out chunks of time to do this, and that's fine if that works for them. But in the beginning, most people don't, because they don't have the time, because they've got full-time jobs that they have to work. And so I try to emphasize that this is something you can work in the nooks and crannies of your life.
And that is a huge benefit on this business model, is it's at your own work, it's at your own pace. Some people, they want to walk, some people want to jog, some people want to sprint.
Right.
And, you know, whatever it is, I would just say have those adult conversations up front so the expectations are set properly. You know, if somebody wants to make $10,000 a month doing this, they're going to probably have to go faster than, you know, somebody that's walking and sharing this very occasionally. So just ask enough questions that you truly understand if that is the objection, and then getting from them what in their head they're thinking that it'll take. So if they think it's going to take too much time, and like Mark said, they're thinking of it as a full-time job, then if we can explain to them, you know, no, if you could carve out 30 minutes a day over the course of the rest of this year, that's going to add up to be a lot of effort put into, you know, your side business, your plan B.
And a lot of people think that you have to go and sign up thousands and thousands of people to be successful in this. Can you address that a little bit for us and say, you know, tell us how many you guys have signed up? And
so we're coming up on 7 years. It'll be 7 years in a couple days. We've signed probably 75 distributors over that time. So it's not even one a month that we've averaged over the course of 7 years. Out of those 75, I would say maybe 10% have treated it even like a part-time job. And so that would be 7-8 people. With those 7 or 8 people, most of them working at part-time, our network has turned into 26,000 people globally. So it's not that you need to enroll a ton of people yourself. That's the leveraging aspect of this business model is, you share with somebody that shares with somebody that shares with somebody, and all of a sudden you have a group that pops up in Canada,
Right.
or you have a group that pops up on the East Coast, or, we have some volume coming out of Australia and Thailand. I didn't enroll, Michelle didn't enroll anybody in those places. So it's really identifying the right people. And when you find a few of the right people, your business will triple, quadruple overnight. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
So let's talk about on the product side, people thinking that it could just be a placebo effect. How do you address that?
Well, there is indeed something called a placebo effect, and you guys probably know what that is, where you get an effect just because you're taking something and you think it's going to help you, right? Well, the best way that I have to address that is to tell people, go watch the videos about dogs on YouTube that have been on Protandim. There's several of them out there. You can find them. And watch the dog who can barely walk, and then 2 weeks later, they're running around like a puppy. Yep. Now, there's two things about dogs. They never lie, and they don't know what a placebo effect is. So you get these skeptical humans who will come to you, and you tell them all this great stuff. You show them the science. You talk about the 23 peer-reviewed scientific studies on PubMed. And for whatever reason, they still don't believe you. They're still skeptical. They still say that, oh, well, I heard so-and-so's whatever ailment got better, and I don't know if I believe it. I think it was just placebo effect. Well, you can't tell me that dogs understand that placebo effect. So show that to the skeptic and say, look, if this dog can improve like that, do you think that there's a chance that maybe it might help you as well? I mean, I think that's probably the best way to get over the skeptics who think it's a placebo effect. And then we have the human clinical study that showed a 40% reduction in oxidative stress in 30 days. And there's tons of testimonials out there of other people that have had significant improvements in labs and so forth, where you have the raw data that you can sit down and look at. So that's how I would address the placebo effect thing.
Cool. And I think in addition to the placebo effect, we live in a society that in order for people to truly believe it, regardless how good the science is or how much science there is out there, they want to feel something for themselves. So right. How do we set that up for success when we know that not everybody has an outward feeling?
That's a great question. And so many people want to have a feeling when they take this, that they want to feel something so that they have a sense that indeed it is working in their body. But I tell people, there's diseases that run in my family, cancer and heart disease, and I wanted to do everything that I possibly could to reduce my risk of future problems. And I knew that reducing oxidative stress, based on the knowledge that I had about its link to all of these different health problems, I knew that reducing oxidative stress was a very good step for me to take to prevent things down the road. So I started taking Protandim with no intention of it helping anything. I didn't really feel like I had any conditions that needed any help. But over about a 3-month period of time, I noticed things happening in my body, and I was like, oh my gosh, this wasn't something I expected to happen, but it's a really good thing, and I'm glad it is happening. And I was able to get off of several other things that I was taking for other conditions as a result of reducing the oxidative stress through NRF2 activation in my body. And so I think that you have to set people up with the proper expectations and tell them, everybody who comes to you, if they've got a specific disease or ailment, is going to ask you, what is this going to do for my condition X? And I caution you not to try to tell them, oh yeah, it's going to help with that. Rather, what I say to them is, well, I started taking this for the preventive effects, and oxidative stress does different things in different people's bodies. And I don't know what it's doing in you. I know what it's doing in me, or at least I have an idea what it's doing in me. And whatever it's doing in you, it may get better as you take something that reduces oxidative stress. But I never promise them that it's going to make anything better. I just try to get them to understand that reducing oxidative stress is a great preventive measure in providing yourself with a long, healthy lifespan. So,
and what kind of expectation, if somebody's wanting to try it or see what it does for them, what are you suggesting as far as a time frame that they give it to work?
I will tell you that I tell people you need to take it for at least 6 months. If they're looking for a specific health condition to improve, they need to give it 6 months.
Yeah.
And my brother is the example that I used. He had a significant skin issue, and it took him 7 months before it improved, but it improved dramatically at that point. Had he quit at 2-month time period when he wanted to, and I made him keep taking it, had he quit at that 2-month time interval, he never would have seen the long-term effect.
Okay. And then Marissa's asking about detoxing, and people stop taking it because maybe one thing that they're seeing is like their stomach's upset, or they feel like it's keeping them up. They can't sleep. How do you deal with that?
So let's talk a little bit about the detox reaction that can occur. It's very rare, perhaps 1 in 10,000 people experience this. So detox reactions tend to occur in people who are very toxic, people who either have significant health conditions or perhaps have been on significant medications or have had exposure to significant chemicals, etc. What happens is there's 2 detoxification phases in your body. There's what's called phase 1 and phase 2. Both of them are dependent upon glutathione. And in people who are generally toxic people because of their exposure to all of these different chemicals, those chemicals often get stored in their fat stores. And here's what happens. You ingest a chemical that's not supposed to be in your system. Phase 1 of detoxification takes that molecule and it converts it into an intermediate molecule. Those intermediate molecules oftentimes are more toxic to your body than the parent molecule that you took in initially. Now, if your phase 2 of detoxification is not working properly, that intermediate molecule gets stored in your fat stores in your body. And so if your glutathione levels are low, you're going to have higher levels of these toxic intermediate molecules that are stuck in your fat and they can't get out. So here's what happens. As if your phase 2 works properly, it converts that toxic molecule into something benign, and then you excrete it in your urine or your feces. But if your phase 2 isn't working, it can't do that. So when you start taking something that increases glutathione, like Protandim does significantly, and you get phase 1 and phase 2 of detoxification working properly, then you start to mobilize those toxic intermediate molecules out of your fat stores. And as they get into your bloodstream, they actually start to make you feel sicker before you feel better, because your body's getting rid of them, but it has to go through the process of pulling it out of the fat stores, getting it into the bloodstream so you can excrete those molecules out of your body. And then once they're out, then people start feeling better. Now, how long does that process take? It depends. It could be a matter of a couple of days. It could take, I've seen it take as long as 6 months. So what do you do during that time? I tell people to cut their dose of Protandim in half. So instead of taking a full pill a day, take a half a pill a day. And if that resolves their symptoms, then they can go back up to a full pill. I've had people have to actually go back down as low as a quarter of a tablet a day for as long as a month before they gradually increased it to a half a tablet and then up to a full tablet. So what are the types of symptoms that a person may have with the detox reaction? Headache, GI upset, diarrhea, nausea, rash. Those are the typical things. Now, again, this is very rare. Perhaps 1 in 10,000 people will experience the detox reaction, but that's how you deal with it if they get it. Now, there will be a certain group of people who are actually allergic to one of the ingredients in Protandim, and every time they take it, no matter what the dose, no matter how long, they're going to have a reaction. And in those people, they flatly just can't take Protandim. But the likelihood of a true allergic reaction to any of the ingredients is extremely small, less than 1 in 10,000. And if they are allergic to something, ashwagandha is usually the culprit. So not everybody on earth is going to be able to take Protandim, just because everybody's body's different, and some people just will not be able to tolerate a particular compound. But as far as the detox reaction goes, if the person is patient and willing to work through it, there's a good chance that they're going to eventually be able to tolerate a full dose of Protandim at some point down the road.
So lots of water to flush out the toxins that are being released, maybe lowering the dose temporarily until you can do it. And then on the sleep one as well too, sometimes we've found a difference with people, they're taking it at night and they switch to morning and they don't have that anymore, or vice versa. They've been taking it in the morning, they switch to night, and it seems to act differently in the body.
Right. And like I said, everybody's body responds differently. So if you find that taking it at night keeps you awake, then obviously take it in the morning.
Yeah.
Or if it makes you sleepy, take it at night instead of in the morning.
Yeah. So really educating them on, you know, why is your body going through this sort of reaction to it? And if it is, you know, a release of toxins, isn't it better to go through that, get a little bit worse, like Dr. Mark just said, to get better, knowing that it is temporary and you will get through it. So
absolutely,
as long as it's tolerable, help them push through it at the dose that they're on. If need be, cut back a little bit and see what that changes.
Yep.
Cool.
All right. On the business side, typical question, two typical questions I'll have you address together.
Yep.
I don't know anybody and I'm not a salesperson.
Yeah. So, you know, have some fun with them when they tell you they don't know anybody, you know, kind of joke back with them. Is that really true? You don't know anybody? Because what's the reality? Everybody knows somebody. They do know people. They wouldn't be in front of this information if they didn't know anybody. Asking them how many people they have in their contact list in their phone is an easy way to see if they know anybody or not. Marcel always jokes about, you know, taking somebody's phone and then scrolling through and finding somebody and saying, oh, you don't know this person? Can we delete them? But the reality is everybody knows some people. It's just they probably don't feel comfortable getting the information in front of them for some reason. And the biggest things that are going to paralyze a distributor or even a prospect from moving forward is fear and confusion. And so until you alleviate whatever it is that's holding them back, it's going to be difficult to move them forward. So understand that. Ask them if they know anybody that's dealing with some of the disease states that we talk about with oxidative stress or mitochondrial dysfunction. You know, everybody knows people that are dealing with problems that range from rheumatoid arthritis to diabetes, you know, different cancers, kids with autism, ADHD. Just get their brain working a little bit to think of things that they do. Ask them what they're interested in doing with their free time. You know, do you go to church? Do you have kids? If they have kids, their kids are usually involved in some kind of activity. So there's usually a parent group that's involved with that activity that they know as well. So really just using the memory jogger and again, asking questions. If you see something that's a golden thread throughout really understanding the business and talking through with prospects, it's really asking more questions to find out and get to the root of it with people that you're talking to. And then not a salesperson. I'm not a salesperson. I'm not a salesperson. Are you a salesperson? No, okay. And a lot of the time salespeople struggle with this business model because they're good at being a salesperson because they understand a particular process to walk somebody through a buying decision from A to Z for a specific product or service that they've been selling for a while. And that's very different than them coming into the network marketing and nutraceutical arena where we're educating people and seeing if it's a fit for them or not. And what we find with people that don't have experience and they're not salespeople to begin with, they're typically more open-minded to following the system that we know that works, as opposed to the person that comes in with an already proven track system and selling other things that they want to integrate and use in this, but it doesn't necessarily align with what our system is to get people involved. So being a salesperson, I don't think it's a good or a bad thing. It's just a different way of getting involved on the experience level and what you know and don't know about selling.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of it has to do with, for salespeople, they already think they know how to do it because they've done it before.
Yeah.
Whereas we have a different system, and it's harder for them to sit down and go through the system and figure out what it is that they need to do because they already think that their ego's talking and they already think they know how to do it. But if you can get them down to look at sit them down to look at the system, and they realize that it's not that complicated, and if they just follow on the success of other people who have gone before them, that they can have that same kind of success. So it's really, I think, for the salespeople, that do get involved, more of just an education, say there's a little bit different way to sell this than what you're used to selling.
Right. And in reality, depending on what your definition of salespeople is, we all sell all the time anyway.
Right.
And we might not look at it like sales, but if you're talking to somebody about a movie or a restaurant that you went to and you're sharing with them the positive aspects of it, you know, we're selling them on the idea that we think this is good and they should think it's good too, or they should at least give it a try. If you're trying to get a job, you're trying to sell yourself to somebody else based off of your resume and an interview format. You know, talking your kids into actually doing the chores that they're supposed to do. And we're selling them on the negative and the positive of them doing it or not doing it.
I think you're right. I think that we all sell stuff all day long. It's like when I was still practicing cardiology, if I would see a patient and I would say, gee, Mr. Jones, based on the symptoms that you have, I think you need to have a stress test.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm selling him on the idea of why he needs to have a stress test.
Yeah. So I think, again, don't get wrapped up in your head on preconceived ideas or notions about the industry or the business or what you have to be or don't have to be, because there's successful people that have done it from all walks of life. And it isn't just salespeople that have success. It's probably at the lower end of the spectrum when you look at all of the people that are in this doing it successfully.
It seems to me like it's more the people who are coachable and teachable, and the ones who are able to tell a story and share a gift rather than try to push something down somebody's throat.
Yeah, absolutely. 100% agree. All right, so let's talk about drug interactions. You know, so we are in a society that people have been prescribed a lot of different stuff. And that blew me away when we started going into people's living rooms and they open up their cupboard and they have like a whole shelf of stuff that they're putting in their body.
Yeah, it happens to me probably at least a dozen times a week where I get an email or a text message or a Facebook Messenger message. Dr. Gordon, I've got this prospect and here's their list of medications. Is Protandim going to interfere with any of these? And the short answer to that is no. There have not been any documented drug interactions with Protandim and anything else. Now, that being said, there are a few caveats. One is there's a drug called Coumadin or warfarin, which is a blood thinner that works by acting on the vitamin K dependent clotting factors. And because Protandim is 5 plants together, there is a tiny bit of vitamin K in Protandim. So that being said, there's the potential that Protandim could have an effect on how thin the blood is in somebody who's on Coumadin. Doesn't affect any of the other blood thinners. It's just Coumadin or warfarin. Warfarin is the generic name for Coumadin. So does that mean they can't take Protandim? No, it means that they just need to be more careful and they need to check their INR, which is the blood test that measures the thinness of the blood when they start taking Protandim 4 days later and then perhaps weekly for the first month to make sure that their blood stays in the right thinness range for whatever condition it is that the doctor is thinning their blood. The only other caveat is in patients that have had organ transplants who are on immunosuppressive drugs. And that has to do with the fact that the reason they're on an immunosuppressive drug is to prevent them from rejecting the organ. And because Protandim can enhance immune function, the question arises, could that potentially interfere with the anti-rejection effects of those medications? We don't know the answer to that, but we err on the side of caution. So we just tell people if you've had an organ transplant, you should not take this particular product. And then the other thing that I'll comment on briefly is cancer, chemotherapy, or radiation therapy. That comes up all the time. A cardiologist is kind of a plumber, all right? So that's kind of where my fund of knowledge comes from, is plumbing of the human body. Oncologists are a lot smarter people than cardiologists, so I'll just preface you with that. But a cardiologist's view of chemotherapy is this: you give a toxic dose of an oxidizing agent, hoping it kills the bad cells and hoping the good cells live. And so if you're giving a toxic dose of an oxidizing agent, be it chemotherapy or radiation therapy, then the question arises, could taking something that has a potential potent antioxidant effect reduce the effectiveness of the chemo or the radiation therapy? There are studies that would suggest could. There's studies that suggest that it doesn't. But because of the controversy in that, again, we err on the side of caution, and we tell people if somebody's undergoing active chemotherapy or radiation therapy, that they likely should not take Protandim unless they get approval from their oncologist.
Makes sense. So now that we're on that kind of line of thinking, we get a lot of times asked, well, I want to take it to my doctor to see what they say.
Okay. Most doctors are not going to know what Protandim is. When you tell them it's a nutritional supplement, most doctors are going to thumb their nose and say, well, nutritional supplements don't do anything except give you expensive urine. At least that's what I was taught in medical school. I remember one of my professors actually standing up in front of our class of 200 medical students and saying that exact statement. So supplements are not something that are held in high esteem by most allopathic physicians. Now, that being said, there's a growing group of physicians who are more interested in prevention, integrative medicine, functional medicine, who do now understand the importance of nutritional supplements. And interestingly, when I did my anti-aging fellowship, I started to learn all the biochemistry of all of these different plants and natural supplements and so forth. And in many cases, they work in similar fashions to many medications in the human body. So that biochemistry was not known 20 years ago, but it is today. So there's a growing field of people who are actually studying the effects of nutritional supplements and so forth. So with that being said, most of the older dogs who are doctors aren't going to know what supplements are, what they do, the power of them, and they're particularly not going to know about Protandim or what NRF2 activation does. And so when you ask a doctor, should I be taking this? You know, if they're going to at least give you some time on the subject, they're going to look at the bottle, they're going to look at the ingredients, they're going to go green tea, know what that is, turmeric, I know what that is, milk thistle, know what that is, ashwagandha, I've never heard of it, bacopa, I've never heard of it. I don't know why you'd want to take this stuff. I don't think it's going to do you any good. They're not going to understand the synergy of the 5 ingredients together, leading to that significantly enhanced NRF2 activation. And furthermore, they're not going to know what NRF2 even is. So a better question to ask your doctor, rather than take the bottle in and say, should I take this? The better question to ask is, doctor, would lowering oxidative stress be a good thing for me? And if they say yes, then that should be all the validation that you need. If they say no, then think about getting a different doctor. Now, the other thing that you can ask, if you want to get a little bit snooty with your doctor, is you can say, doctor, explain to me what you know about NRF2 or NRF2. And if they give you the deer in the headlights look and they don't understand what you're talking about, then I would ask the question, what business do they have giving you a recommendation whether you should or should not be taking a NRF2 activator if they don't even know what it is?
Yeah. Awesome. I love that.
Yeah. So, all right, Shawn, back to the business part of it. One of the things that I hear is people have either had experiences in network marketing before or know people that have, and they feel that you can't make any money in it, and the only people that do make money are the people at the top. So how do you respond to that?
Well, in business in general, let's start with that again. Timing is important. There is a benefit to knowing about something before the average person. That might be the reason people think that only the people at the top make money, is because they got in earlier than somebody else. But there's example after example after example when companies have become mature and is at the top of that S curve, that a new person comes in and kills it. I mean, that there is no hindrance to them. They just don't have the benefit of having the proper timing and riding through what's known as a momentum phase. So the earlier you are in a business model like this, when it does hit that momentum phase and the average person starts to understand it, there can be huge potential to getting in during that time or prior to that time than after. Mm-hmm. And that isn't just related to this. You know, if you understood early on how much of a benefit inventing the iPhone was going to be for Apple, and you invested with them when the iPhone 1 came out, is that a better opportunity than now that they have the iPhone 8 and the iPhone X? They're at the top of the curve. They developed a new product, and they've had tremendous amount of growth. And it wasn't until probably around the iPhone 4 that the average person truly knew that this technology was out there and wanted to adopt it. So there is benefits in getting in early, but there isn't a barrier to somebody having success regardless what level or what timing that they get in. Again, when you look at our income disclosure statement, it breaks down. There's a column in there, the total revenue earned by people at every single one of those levels. And when you look at that, the money that's given out in commissions at LifeVantage, when you look at the Pro 10 level, is a lot less than the money that's being earned in those middle and lower ranks. And so that tells me that people that are at these, earlier ranks, Pro 3 and 4 and 5 and 6, they are making significant amounts of money, and there's a lot of people in those ranks that are doing it. So it isn't geared towards or just intended for the people at the top. When you look at one specific part of our compensation plan, the royalty commissions or the unilevel portion, what you get paid out is 2%, 5%, 9%. Okay, those are the three different amounts that can be paid. Well, the level of the 9% is actually the third level in our business. So if they wanted to really stack the cards for the people at the top, it wouldn't have been put in the third levels making 9%. So we definitely do have the little person or the person that wants to do it part-time in mind in a lot of what we do. And there is, money regardless at what level you want to get to available for somebody.
I think that's important to differentiate how our compensation plan differs from perhaps some that an individual had been in the past, some other company. Because you're exactly right. The middle ranks in this company do make decent money as opposed to a lot of the other companies where it was really only the people at the top. So whenever I'm talking to somebody about the business or the products, I try to differentiate how we're different than everything else if they have had a negative experience in another network marketing company. I think that's important.
And again, it comes down to asking the questions. Where does that mentality or that mindset come from? Did you personally have a bad experience? Somebody that had a bad experience? I came into network marketing with a negative connotation attached to it, but I had no reason for that. I didn't know anybody really that, had been successful or hadn't, that had been burned from it, but I still had a negative connotation attached to it. And, the interesting component to me was when I was in the corporate world with Citigroup, I wasn't going to make more money than the CEO of the company. It was not an option. Within network marketing, you could actually create a business that outpaces the people above you, right? And you can create a business that you actually make more money than the CEO of the company. That's pretty cool. There isn't a ceiling or a level that you get to that prevents you from getting to the next, regardless where you are in the scheme of the structure of the business, or whether you're a distributor or a corporate employee. And to me, when you start eliminating those things and just give somebody unlimited potential, that's a pretty awesome opportunity.
Absolutely. And they talk about the glass ceiling for women and so forth and so many other corporate jobs. That doesn't exist in network marketing. I mean, in fact, there's probably more successful women in network marketing than there are men.
100% agree.
Yeah.
100% agree. So let's wrap this up maybe with one question on each side on this. Do you want to talk about already taking the ingredients or stopping other supplements and drugs that they're currently taking?
Yeah, we can talk about both of those. So oftentimes when I present this to people, they say, well, I'm already taking all of those ingredients or several of those ingredients. And I say, well, that's great, but what's important is the ratio that you're taking these products in. And that's where the power is. That's where the synergy occurs. And it's not a secret what the formula for Protandim is. You can go and look at the very first study and it tells you the exact makeup, how many milligrams of each ingredient are in a Protandim tablet. So you could make your own, but because of the patents that we have, you can't sell it to anybody. So it would only be for your own consumption. And frankly, it seems to me that it would be more time, effort, and money to try to make your own, to try to duplicate your own Protandim, rather than to just pay the $40 that it costs to get the Protandim. So as far as taking the ingredients, if you're not taking all of them and you're not taking them in the right ratio, you're not going to get that same level of nerve 2 activation. And really, why would you want to take the risk when you've already got something that's proven? We've got 23 published peer-reviewed studies behind our product, and you have no studies behind your throwing together of these different ingredients. Now, as far as stopping other supplements and drugs, I caution people, don't ever stop a medication without approval from your doctor. Now, if you've got a particular health condition that does improve while you're taking Protandim, you can go back to your doctor and you can say, hey, doctor, you know, my such and such is better now. I'm wondering if I can start backing off on my medication. But I would never tell somebody to do that without getting their doctor's permission. Regarding other supplements, Protandim doesn't take the place of certain supplements like fish oil, and we have a great omega product that we haven't talked about on this webinar, but it doesn't take the place of, say, calcium for women who may have osteoporosis or things like that. So there are a lot of other good supplements out there that do things that are fundamentally different than Protandim. So, you know, activating nerve 2 reduces oxidative stress, and if you're taking supplements for other reasons, you probably want to keep taking them. But what I can tell you is if you're taking any supplements that are antioxidant supplements, you can stop those because this is so significantly more potent in the antioxidant realm. And it's not that Protandim is an antioxidant itself, rather it increases the body's production of antioxidant enzymes, and those enzymes are significantly more potent than the direct antioxidants that you take in from the outside, from foods or other supplements like vitamin E or vitamin C.
Love it.
So, all right. One of the things that I also get asked from the business perspective is, you know, people get scared that they may be working in a job and they're afraid that if they start doing this, that they're going to get in trouble at work and people are going to have a negative view of them, and that, you know, they think that only people who can't get a real job get involved with network marketing. So how do you respond to those?
That's not true.
That's not true.
Yeah. Again, that's the negative connotation. And this comes down to how you're sharing it with people, I think. You know, if you're doing this right and you have other people and fulfilling a pain or a need in their life, chances are it's not going to get you in trouble. There are certain professions, certain things that people are doing for work that they may be restricted on how much they can bring it in, if at all, into the workplace, but that still doesn't prevent somebody from actually participating in this and doing this. Might have to be outside of their normal course of work, though, and I know you were an example of that.
Yeah.
I actually, when I left Citigroup, I had a part of my severance package, I had to sign a 12-month non-compete clause, which did not allow me to even call or talk to anybody that worked at Citigroup. So there were certain, you know, barriers in mind there, but that didn't prevent you from doing this. You did it outside of your clinic hours, right, outside of the hospital. Right. Same with me. I was approaching other people that weren't from Citigroup. I couldn't for a 12-month period. So there are limitations that some people have, but most of the time it isn't. It's more of you have to do it in a manner that isn't going to upset the people around you.
Right. Right. And that's the important thing is we certainly don't want people to get fired from their job because they're promoting this as their business. And if you are at a business and your boss comes to you and say, hey, you can't do this here at the office, just don't do it there.
Yeah.
The business that I built was built outside of the hospital, outside of the medical practice, just talking to people that I knew in the community or friends or family and so forth that weren't linked to my business in any way, shape, or form. Mm-hmm. So, you know, when people talk about not knowing anybody or the only people they know are the people at work, I really don't buy that. Everybody knows somebody outside of their work environment. And frankly, there's probably a lot of people in your work environment that you wouldn't want to be in business with anyway, because you've been down that road with them.
Yeah. And in this business, the relationship part of it is more important than anything else. And so you have to do it in a way, regardless if it's at work or with your family, in a way that isn't going to damage that relationship at all.
Right.
If you start to feel that, you know, people think that you're bothering them or you're doing it in an intrusive way, or the relationship's starting to get strained, they're not returning texts, they're not returning phone calls, they seem to be avoiding you, you're probably being too aggressive or doing it the wrong way. So, pull back a little bit and make sure that you're making it about the other person. Have adult conversations in that aspect too, though. Hey, I sense that, you're not returning my text anymore. You used to always. I hope that it's not because I'm talking about LifeVantage, because if it is, I really want to know that. Our relationship's more important than you being a customer or distributor in my business.
I think it's important that you just be respectful of the other individual. And there was somebody that I know who posted on Facebook recently, don't you hate when you get a phone call from an old friend and they want to get together with you for coffee, and you get there and you find out that the only reason they wanted to talk to you was to present their new business opportunity to you? So don't put yourself in that situation. I mean, if you're going to call somebody and you want to get together with them for a coffee, go get together with them for coffee and have a conversation and get to know them. Don't have this hidden agenda that you're going to push the business on them.
Right.
If you're going to talk about the business, make sure that you're up front when you make the original invitation. Say, hey, by the way, Bob, in addition to getting to know you, I'm involved with this new company. I would like to talk to you about it and get your thoughts on it. So they know up front, so they don't feel like you're doing something behind, backwards. So that never makes people feel good.
No, and honestly, when this business is done right with the right people and the right products, it's one of the most amazing ways to do business. But you do have to be careful and make sure that you're not damaging the relationships that exist. Jackie's asking how you would approach a person who's in another company. This can be tricky because if somebody's passionate and excited about the company that they're in and 100% in, there isn't anything that you're going to say to get them over, and it's going to actually end up being a mine against yours type of deal, and you won't win that battle, right? If they're 100% in and they're excited and passionate about what they're doing, compliment them on it. Say, I love that you're doing network marketing. I love that you've had success with another company. Would you ever be open to seeing what else is out there? If they tell you no to that, chances are that it's not a great time to be bringing up another company. They're not going to give it the look or consideration that you want them to. So unless that they're actively looking or actively open to it, I would more encourage their success and support them on their journey, because then if they ever do get to the point where they're ready to leave or look for another company, they will respect the fact that you weren't trying to get them out of it when they were excited and passionate about it.
Right. And the other thing is just build that relationship, because you never know what's going to happen to that person's company. I mean, we hear about network marketing companies that go down the drain every day. And if somebody is really successful, they may then at some point down the road want to look for something. Look for another company. And if you were the one that was kind and gentle and didn't push things on them, and you've got a great company and a great product, 6 months down the road when their company falls apart because they've got terrible products, you might be the first person that they call looking for another opportunity. So foster those relationships, ask permission to be able to contact them periodically as things go on down the road, and just keep the relationship open, because you never know what could happen in the future.
Cool. Well, I think that this was a great time educating people and just kind of talking through some of these questions that we know that we've gotten over the last several years in building this business. And I think it would be awesome too if in the comments section, if there's stuff that wasn't covered that you would like to have done. I know I would be open to it. I'm pretty sure Mark would too. We could hop in a couple weeks once we have compiled a new list of things that you guys would love to hear answers from, or maybe we'll shake it up and we'll get a couple girls on here that can answer some questions for them too. But again, this business is about us doing it together. We're not going to build your business for you, but we will definitely build it with you and give you the tools and resources necessary for you to have success. So let us know how we can help. Appreciate the time. Appreciate Dr. Gordon
Shawn
taking time out of his Sunday to jump on here, and have a great week. And hopefully we will see you guys in Anaheim, right?
Yep. Awesome. Take care, guys.
All right. Take care.
Bye-bye. Bye.